Yeah.
Well, it's been so long, I don't remember how this meeting goes. So let's see. First of all, let's see, I'm looking around the audience. Do I know everybody? Oh, maybe not. We have a visitor, so let's handle that first. Please,
Here you go. Speak into the
Please.
microphone.
For
please.
real.
Yeah, well, it's for the folks at home here that are
Oh,
watching.
hi, folks at home.
Yes.
Look in the camera over there.
Just say who you are and
Oh. I'm Mary Johnson. I live in Del Webb with Cheryl and with Ron. Well, not with them.
okay, we're a liberal group around here. You know, I've heard
Same neighborhood.
about these communities with seniors, you know.
We're a lot of fun.
And she's the life of the party.
I understand not a diver though, or an
I
underwater
hope you
photographer.
enjoy it tonight. We got an exciting presentation.
Okay, next order of business. Thank you so much. There's a beer in there for you somewhere. So, we can do that. Who's been diving? Anybody diving recently?
Thank you.
Oh, surprise. Betsy Beasley says she was diving.
Need a second? Here you go. Micro.
Okay, so we were the brave ones who went to Buceo Anilau in January. And anyway, there are creatures that come out during that time of the year that you don't see the rest of the year in Anilau. So like the pajama Pikachu, right? Which only shows up briefly and then is gone.
Everybody knows what the Pikachu is, right? It's a little nudibranch, a small one, and they call it that because it looks like the little cartoon character. And what she's trying to say is that they have at that reef there, it's unique to Anilau. You won't see it anywhere else, according to them. It's called a pajama because it's got kind of a brownish golden color with little stripes, little racing stripes down the side. It's really cute. Yeah. It kind of made our trip. You can see.
So anyway, the temperature was in the upper 70s, and it was like 25 C to 27 C, right around there. Mainly around 26 most days. And so I wore my heated vest and my 5 mil pants. And because I had the heated vest on and that was just cranking away, I just put a 2 millimeter jacket on top of that and I was good to go. So it was fine.
I was dressed all in black with a set of pumps that slipped on easily and off to get in and out of the boat, you know.
Yeah. I wore my big boots, but I don't like wearing those 5 mil boots because they fill up with air and then my feet float.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Has anybody else been diving?
Does the dude still abide?
He was not there. He was off at.
He was up at Dima or one in Europe, I think.
Oh, okay.
Germany, yeah. Yeah, he's posting, he's looking good, yeah. Anybody on the screen been diving recently?
No.
No?
I'm about to.
Okay, all right.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Osizaki, Japan. I'll be there for a week and then I go to Star Wars Celebration in Tokyo.
Star Wars. That's kind of new for you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I just saw some reruns last week, you know. That's gonna make an interesting film.
I can imagine.
So you got to get, if I'm sure you know where this is, but in case not, there's a place out near the American Park there that I don't know what this thing is. It's one of the original Transformers, and they actually made it live where it stands about 8 stories high or something like that. And
I heard about that.
it's
Like
Gundam.
Optimus Prime or one of those guys.
He moved a foot when we were there.
We saw him move a couple years ago, but don't know last year. I don't think it was moving anymore.
Okay, well, this was last, May. Yeah,
Well, we were there in September, October. He wasn't moving anymore.
well, anyway, it's pretty cool.
It
They,
is
they,
cool. It's
they,
a
they
giant-
crank him up two or three times a day.
It's a giant transformer.
Yes. Has all this, I mean, the Japanese are into that stuff, so, but there'll probably be folks out there paying homage to this thing, so
Probably.
get some film. Okay, let's see, we're moving right along. Officer reports, Frank, you wanna?
Here we go, Frank. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, you get up for this. Have a couple things. First one, 4 meetings late, but it's kind of hard to find all the members. I have a Neptune Award for participation in community events and leadership in those events. And in 2024, we award that to Betsy Beasley.
I got a 30 max from the head. Okay, just turn this.
They can hear you.
Okay, a couple other quick ones, from the council stamp, we have the scholarship report and offering a scholarship, $500 for, college, basically it's a college scholarship. So the applications are in the newsletter and available on the website. If you're qualified or you have a daughter, son, grandson, granddaughter, please take a look at the application. Then I wanted to briefly cover a little bit about the flower gardens. They are part of NOAA, and as you've listened to the federal government, they definitely got cut back a little bit, especially with the clause that said if you haven't been employed for 2 years, then they terminate you for cause.
Okay.
They had one employee that met that criteria, and that's I think Michelle. Is that all? Okay.
Marissa, Frank,
Melissa, thank you.
Frank, Marissa, no.
Okay, Larissa, thank you. Key thing there is she'd probably been an employee for 15 years, just as a temporary, which is how a lot of the federal governments work. She was their dive safety officer. That means nobody at the flower gardens is diving because it requires a safety officer. She was probably one of the most trained people they had. Anyway, if you're interested in trying to support them, they are asking that you write your congressman, and I have a listing about 3 or 4 names and addresses that you could send stuff to. But we're starting to see that ripple. It's also very questionable whether or not the buoys get maintained out on the flower gardens. So it will impact us. I mean, basically the flower gardens was a sanctuary that was asked for by the divers to protect that element and also to maintain the buoys that the divers had put in. And when the divers had them, they were quickly pulled out. And that means that you had ships anchoring that just were totally above the weight limit, size limit, and they just ripped them out, and you had people going through. So the flower garden is very important to diving out there and safe diving. Okay. The last item I'd just like to briefly cover was Aqua, which is the charitable foundation that divers have set up. We have a supporter category, and that's $20 a year. And so if you're interested in that, you can see me. I have the applications. If you haven't renewed, and we had several that have not, then I'll also take your money. But say again? The Aqua, which is a diving divers foundation, we actually have a charity that works for our community. We've contributed money to several causes. One is with Sea Camp for 2 years now, and we basically functioned for 2 years. Some of the disadvantaged divers. But the interest is that we contribute money back to the community. We support diving activities. We support basically any water activities. Yeah, allows tax-free donations. But, with our cash flow, let's just say briefly, we are small.
Tax deductible.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that particular category is the only one that pays the expenses for the charity. If you donate, your donation goes through 100%. So if you donate $1,000, we'll put $1,000 back out into the community. Supporter wise, the first thing we do is take off the expenses for Aqua. And the expenses basically come out to website. So everything else above website costs is again going out in form of donations back into our community. Thank you.
Stands for American Charitable Water Sports Association. Aqua.
Yeah, I want to introduce everybody to a friend of mine, Robert. Would you like to speak to us and tell us where we met?
Good evening. My name is Robert Brunel, and Dennis and I got some of our certifications together a few years ago, and happy to be here. I enjoy underwater photography, although I just recently retired and now I want to get back into it, but then realize that I still have a film underwater camera. So I think I have to come up to speed on many things, but it's good to be here. Good to see you and hear you. Dennis.
Yeah, well, I want you to show up to the film festival for sure. We dove with his father, Roberto Sr., and he looked exactly like Bob Hope. So my friends were calling him Bob. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. And by the way, you don't have to shoot film to be in this group. There's a lot of people that don't do video, and there's no shame in not doing video. But Betsy will come after you.
This is Nancy McGee gonna give the presentation.
So some club things. First of all, we don't usually do this, but maybe we should start. Javon, you got anything you want to say about? Okay. That's all right. So yeah, Dennis, you have something?
Yeah, well, I'm going to get on my soapbox because I'm the one that's supposed to be putting together programs for everyone. And Nancy, of course, is one of the prime examples of that. I still have around 5 months this year that I would like to be able to fill in with. It's easy enough to go out and get online speakers, but what I'd like to have is I would like to have more of more of the local people that would volunteer to come in and either contribute a full program or a part of a program. One of the things that I have had in the past, and I know Frank and Joyce have been very much interested in that over a long time, is people that are first-time presenters to get together and have a group show, sort of a group where we have, premiere night. And so if you would like to be involved, like Helen, I know you haven't been doing anything for us for a long time. I know you have probably a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of people like that. So think about it. I will be coming to you and asking if you're interested in doing that, and Russell, you too. Yeah. So, and over there, Cheryl, all you guys. So anyway, think about it and don't be surprised if I don't get in touch.
Thank you, Dennis. Let me, since I'm on the moral high ground now, I just paid my dues for the club. I realized standing here that I hadn't paid my 2005 dues yet. So now I'm going to lecture all the rest of you about pay your dues. You know, you can do it right online, right while you're sitting here. I did it, go to the website and PayPal and hit the button, boom, you're okay. Otherwise, we're going to set Debbie Menzie after you, or actually Javon, I think, is Yeah, we don't bring her out unless we really need help. So, yeah. You see my $45 there?
Strong arm tactics.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing for Aqua, please think about doing your $20 and be a supporting member of that, because that's what allows the money to all be passed through. If Frank wasn't getting these supporting donations, then we would have to take a percentage out of the money that was donated to go to charities to support the overhead of the organization. So your supporting membership helps do that. So.
And if your money manager is telling you that you've got too much money and that you need to start donating something,
Get a
then
new money manager.
yeah,
Be my advice.
we'll be there with our hands out.
Okay, well, let's see. Oh, everybody's favorite gadget of the month. Did anybody bring their favorite gadget this month to show? Well, it just so happens.
Get close, get close.
Now, so I really like this because I don't know how many of you started out with a cell phone using a flip phone. Yeah. And, but they went out of style, right? But now, back in style. So now you can have it both ways. You can have a full screen like this, and it just goes right up. Still a few bugs in there I'm trying to work out. That little
does
screen
bite.
on the outside for you guys at home.
I guess you could say that it bites.
Right.
And this comes on the heels of a good friend of mine just, about a year or so, he went on eBay and bought the very last, flip phones you could buy. And now I think they're actually making them retro. So, yeah.
So who makes that?
Several people make one. This one's a Samsung. Motorola makes one too, I think. But the neat thing is the folding screen, of course. It's this came about through pretty good technology. OLED, you've seen that, organic light emitting diodes. Well, they got them where they can fold like this now. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And the quality of OLED, by the way, is pretty spectacular. So,
So the blacks are black.
the blacks are really too black, actually. We just got an OLED TV and it's like, oh man, can we turn the blacks back up? Because you never should crush your blacks. Well, don't tell the TV that. So, all right. What else do we have? It's almost time for the show, I guess. Yeah, yes. Oh, the Huff. Sorry. Our film festival. We have this thing going on. I always forget.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Just two quick things. If you're a volunteer for the Huff, you got an email from me with all the volunteers' duties listed and our agenda for the dress rehearsal. There's a link in the email for the doodle poll to, for you to let us know which date you would prefer to have this dress rehearsal. So please respond to that if you haven't already. And the other thing is, if you have anything that you would like to contribute to the raffle for the Huff this year, or if you know someone who you think might want to, please contact them. Please get in touch with me about what your item is. I need to know what it is, a description, and the value of it to put in the poster for the raffle. Okay, that's it.
I don't, I guess,
It could be, you need to tell Martin what it is you're giving, and they got a little formality. They have an acceptance committee, but it's pretty sure if it's something that's of value to. Well, it just goes to the water sports raffle. So it's if it's something related that divers or people attending the show would want to buy on the raffle, and not just a commercial item or something, Yeah.
Sure,
And
that would
Martin
work.
can tell you whether it fits under their guidelines or not. Definitely. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our worthy vice president, who's going to introduce our speaker.
Okay, let me see if I can get myself online here. If somebody could go over and get ready to turn off the show. Tonight's guest is Nancy McGee, and I met her over in Dumagetti when Marty Snyderman was having his group get together called Image Makers. And we did that at the Atlantis Dumagetti Resort, and it was just fantastic. And I got to know Nancy, and I call her the Beauty and the Beast, which is the Beast is her, I guess you would call it her
Husband.
apparatus, her equipment. Yeah, it's the biggest camera I've ever seen. So what I have is I put together about a 6.5 minute introduction film that goes over a lot of her qualifications and things she's done. And I'm going to let that roll. And then after that, Paul Cater-Deaton, who is a Nancyophile, he will take another 3 to 5 minutes and talk a little bit more personal about their relationship. I mean, well, whatever.
They know what you mean.
Okay, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Hi, my name's Nancy McGee. I'm an explorer and an underwater filmmaker, and today I'm going to be the first woman to pilot the exosuit. The exosuit is a state-of-the-art submersible diving apparatus. A $1 million, one-of model, it was designed for use in commercial diving and scientific research. What sets the exosuit apart from predecessors is the pilot's ability to control movement and dexterity. A wearable rebreather, the exosuit is a 1-atmosphere suit capable of supporting a pilot at 1,000 feet of salt water for upwards of 50 hours. After a week of training, I'm ready for the next step: deep ocean exploration.
Like you hasn't heard that one.
Good morning, Benjamin Hatfield, Teach Me to Dive, interviewing fantastic and world-famous divers like Nancy McGee. Now, the other day, I was talking with Dan Orr, and I said, Dan, who would be the person you would be the most likely and most interested in seeing on an interview on our little channel? And he says, do you know Nancy? And I said, no, I don't know Nancy. And he says, you need to know Nancy McGee because she is absolutely flat out amazing. And for Dan to give that kind of praise definitely speaks volumes of the type of caliber of amazingness that Nancy McGee really is. So, Nancy, you've been kind of all over the place. What initially drew you to the world of geographic exploration and diving?
People want to go diving, and that to me was part of being a really good instructor, was making sure that folks were comfortable in different settings. So just because we've spent a couple weeks together doing the course in a pool and then in a lake doesn't mean that you're ready for, real open water situations. So I started leading trips and having a big group that would go with me, and so that the demand for bigger and better happened. And then it was just an opportunity to sit down with boat owners and a set of charts and let the genie out of the bottle, and let's go places that nobody's gotten to go before. Because at that point I had a group of clientele that had already done the week-long trip on Aggressor or this, that. They were looking for something very different. So that's what I ended up specializing in, and going places that nobody gets to go to, that are almost impossible without a lot of time to be able to get there and some ingenuity on the part of the boat owner, operator, and me, the guide, the expedition leader.
What was the most challenging? What was the biggest for you?
I'm going to throw out something a little different, and that's just diving Antarctica.
Okay.
Because that's a place that is absolutely unforgiving, and you are at least 2.5 days from any kind of help. So when you're diving in those kind of extreme conditions, preparation is critical.
When's the last time you just called a dive? It just wasn't making it, you weren't feeling it? What did that look like for you?
Well, that was another Antarctic dive just a few months ago, and we were dropped in by an iceberg that was a grounded iceberg, but visibility was really, really poor. And I could see that the iceberg was off to one side of me, but I couldn't see the iceberg. We needed to stay away from where it was grounded, because when it rolls, when an iceberg is grounded, it can pivot. It also is not necessarily perfectly round. There could be arms reaching out all over the place. So you don't want to get close to the bottom, because it can pull you in and crush you. Or if there's some of these arms and it's bouncing on the surface, you can get crushed by something like that. Well, we couldn't see them. But I don't know where the iceberg is, and this is unsafe. I might be 2 feet from it. I might be 40 feet from it. I can't tell. So just said, okay, not feeling it. Let's surface. Yeah,
So-
Mother Nature will throw some interesting things at you, and you just have to pay attention and live with it. And, I've been diving for 40 some odd years. I love it. I want to be diving for 50 some odd years. So to do that, I'm going to make some smart decisions.
Well, this is kind of an unexpected honor, and I'm very pleased that you used the term Nancy file, because that sounds so much better than fanboy. I appreciate the opportunity to speak a few words about my dear friend Nancy. This is a friendship that's lasted and began so long ago. I don't even frankly remember when or where it started. Was it DEMA? Was it Boston Sea Rovers? Was it Beneath the Sea? I think, well, it goes way before my association with Our World Underwater, so it could have been Chicago. But anyway, met her at about the same time that she was working with Stan, going through his garage and attic and so forth, trying to find to resurrect his old films and digitize them and categorize them so that they could be enjoyed and hopefully that they could educate people for generations to come, because they're marvelous. That that he was the Obi-Wan to my Luke, and a lot of what I am because of him, and a lot of what I continue to be is because of Nancy. Um, we went diving together in the Solomon Islands many years ago. A lot of people have seen the resulting film of that, and she, of course, her presence is very obvious in that show, and it's where I snapped one of my favorite photo. Well, probably the best photo I ever shot, which I shot of the floating market fanned out around the stern of Billy Kiki. And I was standing right next to Stan when I shot that. So I was adequately inspired. Nancy's a gifted speaker and storyteller and an educator. I mean, literally, the woman's a teacher, and I've had the honor of introducing her at dive shows and film festivals around the world. I often use the phrase, "This is one of the only people in the world who can tell you whether or not elephant poo floats." And that usually gets a laugh, and except maybe from Nancy, who has heard me say that about a dozen times, I'm sure. But I've had the honor of being introduced by her at film festivals and dive shows around the country, and it's just a wonderful thing. Um, like me, she's in the Explorers Club, and she embodies the very spirit of exploration. And I think that one of her superpowers, if not the leading superpower, is her ability to put together expeditions to go and become the first people to dive on a dive site. The Forgotten Islands leaps to mind, and that takes a very wealthy knowledge of the marine world. And she's been diving on all the continents. She's got me beat by one, which is okay with me because I don't like cold water. But a woman of many, 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 many superpowers, and I'm so pleased to have had this opportunity to share a few kind of insights about how much she means to me and so many other people, all of you, or I should say, all of y'all included. So, Nancy, wonderful to see you.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you, Nancy. I was going to tell people that when I've been around you, I kept thinking I think I'm hearing Canadian, and then I found out that you're actually from Calgary. And I said, yeah, I'm right on. But like I said to you earlier, says if you're going to be from Canada, Calgary's a great place to be from. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Dennis, for having me. Huff for hosting me. Paul, thank you for the kind introduction. Definitely mutual admiration society, and love being with you and looking forward to diving together again one of these days soon. We got to make that happen.
Yes, we do.
But anyway, it's nice to be here, and I appreciate you guys having me to talk to you. I've got a kind of, I don't know, we'll time this out. This is the first time I've given this presentation, so I'd appreciate some candid feedback. I'm very glad to see that some of you are drinking because, Paul might look better on a small screen. I sound better if you're drinking heavily. So just, knock them back, and here we go. Yeah, I did get to spend a long time working with Stan Waterman, which was a great thrill. And Stan introduced me to so many people along the way. It's a blessed life, and what a great sport to be a part of when we get to actually go up and talk to our pioneers in the industry. We're losing them rapidly, but still it's pretty great that you can go up and talk to the Stan Watermans and the Ernie Brooks and the Cousteau family and all of that. It's really neat. And they're the ones who really started it all. What I'd like to do tonight is just to run through kind of the dichotomy that we have as we're filming, and I'm predominantly video, so I'm going to speak video, but I think there's a lot of application here when it comes to still photography as well. I'm as probably as technical as you can get, but I have a feeling for things, and that's what I want to share with you. And I hope that I'm going to give you some tidbits on, we're shooting macro or we're shooting wide angle, and some things to consider. My brother and I always joke that whenever we're going to a professional conference, if you've got one epiphany after another, you're not really staying current in your field. So I doubt that tonight you're going to just be blown away by all the things I have to say. What I hope that you'll find are tidbits here and there that help you get better. I think when you're at a professional conference, if you're getting 10% new ideas, then that means you really are staying current and continuing to push. So I'm going to go through this. I hope that I've got some advice for you that will work for any device. I'm trying to keep this pretty general, but it's a lot about storytelling when you're filmmaking. So hang on here as I hope to successfully share my screen. And I'm going to start my presentation. All right, here we go. So I'm looking at just the choice
Don't-
between.
Don't forget
Why-
to optimize
Oh,
video.
did I forget to do that? Okay, hang on. Let me just go back and change all of this because I forgot to do that part, Dennis. And that does make a big difference. Thank you. Oh, there it is. It's optimized, so I'm good. And here we go. So tiniest wonders to ocean giants, just the rewards of underwater filmmaking. It is so much fun. And Dennis referred to my camera as the beast. So, you know, as all liveaboard dive boats have, is the giant devices down to the tiniest cameras. And aren't we lucky to live in a world where we've got so many different opportunities for filming. I think back to the days when Stan started and they had to have a generator on the boat and somebody that ran the cables for the lights. And man, now you can take a GoPro with you and get some amazing footage. So it's a lot of fun. But I'd like to talk both on macro and wide angle, a little bit about equipment, more about lighting, and of course, storytelling, which is a huge part of this. But before I get started, I want to give you just a little showcase of our passion here. You know, I love to film. Editing is brutal. That little sequence that's about 1 minute and 8 seconds took me a day and a half to edit. That doesn't count cataloging films and stuff. So storytelling is a big part of it. But let's start with what I think is the easiest thing to do, and that's in macro. Of course, macro means you've got tiny, tiny subjects. So things that are pinhead to maybe chicken egg sized, and you have to find it, you have to focus on it. You know, your depth of field, millimeters can make a difference. And if your subject moves, of course, you're moving, the camera might be moving, the water column moves. So trying to keep things in focus is really hard when it comes to that super macro, especially. I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know there. I don't believe that you can always rely on focus tracking for your camera because macro adds challenges to those camera sensors. And you think about something like a cuttlefish or a blue ring octopus or something where you can't really identify what the eye is. So cameras struggle with that. So it means that you are going to have to be the focus tracker. And then do you go with a tripod or do you handhold? Both have their advantages and disadvantages. For example, you know, when I've got something set on a tripod, camera's stable, I can get the subject in focus, but then if the subject moves, I have to pick it up and follow the subject if that's the shot I'm going for. Now I've got tripod legs that are sticking out and getting caught on things, so you lose your smooth shot. Or the opposite side, if you're hand holding your camera, means that you may end up with some pretty shaky subject, especially for that super macro. Like, for example, I showed the eggs of the anemone fish, and that I don't think there's any way to get that shot hand holding, and it'd be one that you would want to use in your storytelling. I like, and I've put the picture of my camera up here, the beast. because I want to showcase that I've done an awful lot, and you know a photographer by looking at their equipment when they've used a lot of homemade objects to make it work the way they need to. So having the camera balance, I like for macro, I want it to be slightly negative. So when I put my camera on a tripod, it will stay stable even if the water is moving. But I want to have it trimmed out so that the nose is parallel. If I let go of my camera, it's not going to go nose first, which macro or wide angle can be a real problem. And frankly, years of doing this and not having the right trim on there, I've gotten a fair number of cortisone shots in my wrists to take care of all of that. Muck diving means that you have to have really good buoyancy too. So focus on making sure that you are taking care of yourself, your own equipment, before you add that extra feature of a camera to you. So we talked about a stable shot. Here you can see that I've got my tripod set up. I like having that shotgun look. I like having my lens level with the eye of my subject whenever possible. I think it puts you in the setting as the audience a little bit better. So my tripod legs, I can splay out, get a stable shot, get really low. But the other trick that I have here that I absolutely love, and you can see I have a nice big monitor for my aged eyes, and I can get my camera low so I get that shotgun view of my subject, but I can still see it very well. I can focus, I can make sure my settings are right on my system without having to stick my head up against a hydroid as I'm getting it down to look through the viewfinder or stir up muck. You know, it just helps me with a much easier way of shooting. It takes a little bit of getting used to when you've got the mature moment here. Whatever parallax between what your view of the camera lens and what your view from a viewfinder looks like. But it really helps to have that all set up and nice and buoyant. Now, you're never supposed to show your bad footage. That's the rule of a good photographer, but I'm going to break that rule here because I want to show you some of the challenges of dealing with tiny subjects with a narrow depth of field. I've got this beautiful blue ring octopus here that is flashing like crazy. It's great, but it's running. Now, this blue ring octopus is about the size of a dime. So finding it, focusing on it, and then as it's swimming off and tracking with a heavy camera or tripod leg set up, you're trying to get a stable shot and move with it when millimeters make a difference. So I hope I'm not making you guys seasick, but you can see that's a real challenge to be able to get that traveling shot. This frogfish was wonderful. Had a great tripod shot, all set. Frogfish is cooperating, and then he starts to move, and I think that's great. And he climbs up on a rock and steps just out of focus, and then shows me what he thinks. Yep. And then this was interesting. This is slightly smaller than a chicken egg. This is a flamboyant cuttlefish. And when he turns to feed, and you can tell that he's about to feed because those tentacles come close together, and see how he rocks back, goes slightly out of focus. And it's so frustrating. So, you know, honestly, my hint to you is shoot a lot. And you think about it because, you know, you've spent a lot of money for the equipment. You've spent a lot of money for the dive trip to get to where you're going. Push the button. It's a challenge, but you want to make sure that you film as much as you can. Of course, it's wildlife, and if you don't spend time in the field, you won't get the shot. So it means you've got to dive, you've got to dive, you've got to dive. Be safe, but get in the water. That's why you're there, and then shoot. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but put yourself on assignment, make yourself shoot things. So as I said before, I'm not going to talk to you about a lot of camera specifics. I want to be general to meet everybody's needs, the considerations for any system. I know there's lots of people there in the room with you that can talk to you about lenses and diopters and all of that stuff. And there's certainly a lot of dive shops around that can help you. So ask questions of them, but I'm going to go through some pretty practical, different things that hopefully will give you a tidbit or two to learn from. So, when you tell a story, and frankly, I got to tell you, the master of storytelling is Paul Cater Deaton. He is so great in coming up with a wonderful story with twists. He puts humor in there, but he also does a great job tying it all together. And I think that's the hardest part about doing video, especially because you have to spend the time editing and it has to make sense to your audience. So you want to give what you're shooting some story, but you also want to give it context and perspective, especially when it comes to macro. And for non-divers, they have no clue of what's underwater and how big it is. So it's a pretty easy thing to do to make sure that you have an establishing shot and then a medium shot and a close-up shot to give some context and perspective to what it is. The transitions you use or keeping with same type animals can also be useful in giving your audience an idea of the size of the subject. So I'm going to go ahead and talk through a little bit of this, just looking at trying to create some context here. Here we are. Actually, this is where Dennis and I met. We're at Dumaguete in the Philippines. Get an idea of what the substrate is like. And then try to find a shot that you can use that shows, okay, we're obviously in the sand and it's something pretty small, especially when there's that little clip of the muck stick there. I'm going to use wide shots and then close-up shots. I don't do this on every single transition, but something that gives you an idea of what it is that we're shooting, what the size is, and then jump to a more macro shot. I think it gets very formulaic if you always go wide, medium, close. So you can certainly combine the two. Here's an example. I've got a wide shot, I've got a medium shot, and I've got a close shot. And then I can jump to something similar, obviously not the same anemone fish, but you have an idea now of the size of it. Today we've got so many cameras that you are fixed in what you're shooting. If you've got a macro lens on, that's all you get to shoot is macro. I go back to the days of the Fathom 110 lens that was beautiful, that I could do everything with that. I could get the whale shark and then the nose hair of a pygmy seahorse all in this with the same lens. Now, even just using something like a GoPro mounted on top allows you to get something of interest. This was a super cool thing. That is a decorator crab using cuttlefish eggs for camouflage. I've never seen anything like that before. Of course, flamboyants are so fun to watch hunt. And you'll see in most of these shots, I'm trying to get that eye level, straight on shot of the animal. Never, ever enough harlequin shrimp. I'm very much old school. I try to make sure that I shoot with the right white balance and the right lighting setup so that I don't spend a lot of time in post trying to go back and fix things. I want to shoot it right from the can. Now you see that everything that I showed you in macro there has that that background that I'm showing. It's got the lighting in the background. Thanks to actually Backscatter has come up with some great lights that you can easily change the angle of the lights. And I just wanted to show you some examples there. The way I shot all of that is with the light set up like what you see on the left with my lights facing forward. Now with some smaller lights and different mounts, you can get the light to go straight ahead and do some, man, I'm having a mature moment. Is it a Monday night? It feels like it. Some snooting.
Snooting.
Thank you. Video snooting is now something that you can do much easier. When I first had a 3D printer in my office when I was STEM director, I tried to 3D print my own snoots and it didn't have much success. But anyway, you give it a try. Of course, everything is about telling the story. So that B-roll importance is everything. And when the next time you see something that Paul Cater-Deaton has done, watch how he utilizes B-roll, because when he weaves his story together, he uses, you know, the shots of the hands turning the tank on, checking gauges, just you know, the Zodiac ride out, the wake of the motor, all those little things he weaves together beautifully to tell a story. And that's something that you have to remember. It's fun to shoot the animals, but you can't really tell a story well without having those extra pieces. And you'll have to ask me later about the stories that are behind these images here. You know, a story can easily be a trip log. It can be species based. It can be timed to music, whatever makes sense to you. I just did a really quick segment here of nothing but nudibranchs. So it doesn't matter what the story is, it's yours. You just have to make it yours and then use the best footage that you can for it. I certainly like timing things to the beat of music. I think it flows nicely, trying to find something interesting. I remember Stan telling me one guy had done a whole slide presentation using the song Downtown from, what was that, Dionne Warwick or somebody like that. That's a little much. Anything you can do to show size perspective, I think is helpful. And thank goodness for dive guides that have great eyes to help point out all this little stuff, because I'm not finding it like I used to. And if you can't put size perspective in there through video, there's a way. I mean, a finger works. I even was on a trip where a lady would keep a dime and a penny Velcro to her camera housing so she could try to get that in the shot for size perspective. Pikachus. So while macro is about managing focus and the little things, wide angle I think is a lot harder because you've got a lot more to compose. Again, focus tracking has changed a lot. When I started with video and using camcorders, they actually did a really good job of tracking. Let's say there's a shark swimming towards you and it's coming straight in. It would track that very well. What I'm finding with a lot of DSLRs is if the subject is coming towards you, it's minimizing the distance between the subject and your lens. The focus tracking isn't necessarily good. Depends, of course, on the camera system. So it's easier to get around that if you stay parallel to the animal, but also by swimming parallel to an animal, and great example is a turtle. As long as you stay parallel, you can get a good shot. The minute you try to change the angle and you swim perpendicular to it, many times that animal is going to swim away. So you guys know a big part of shooting video is having the animal stick around long enough to get the shot. Speaking of getting the shot, what I like to do when I've got an opportunity is first get the shot, and then move in to try to get closer and closer and make the shot better. But get it first and then make it better. That way, at least you got something in the can. Stable shots, I think this is, again, you can set up on a tripod with wide angle, but having a balanced camera system and having good buoyancy for yourself is important. And then knowing animal behavior is a huge part of it. Like with the flamboyant cuttlefish hunting, when you know when it's about to start to feed, you know when to push the button. One of the challenges I had filming Rajan is that I didn't know how an elephant was going to behave in the water. And yes, Paul, I did have to research, does elephant poo sink or float? Those are just things you need to know so you can look up when you surface, because it floats very well. But you also have to be safety minded when you're shooting. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people rocket off to get the shot. I joke that I knew Stan was done filming his shot because I could hear his computer beeping as he was rocketing off to get to the next shot. He'd get away with it, but not me. I'll be the first one in the chamber. So I've put together a sample of wide angle that I want to talk you through as I'm going through this and tell you, as I said, I'm going to show you some bad shots, some things that I don't like about wide angle, or my shots in particular. Some of this is technical and some of it just has to do with personal preference. Just like before in storytelling, you can do a wide angle shot, take the wide shot, take the medium shot, take the close shot. But I really like hitting low on a subject, want contrast between the subject and the background. It's a really good example of how to set that up. Storytelling here, easy when an animal is eating or having sex. They usually will stick around and ignore you. This turtle was wonderful. Challenge of wide angle filming is that things appear to be further away than they really are. So you have to take that into consideration. When you're getting close, you're going to have to get sometimes really, really close. I like those reveal shots, like that was with the barramundi I just showed you. And the other thing is kind of a traveling shot. It was Ernie Brooks who said that the subject should move, the camera shouldn't. And while I agree with him most of the time, I think that it's not always the case, and sometimes those great reveal shots or a little bit of a traveling shot helps when you're hand holding so that you don't have a really jerky look to it. Rarely do I ever shoot down, but there's some instances like with that coral and with this beautiful big marble ray that shooting down gives an interesting perspective. So try it. Another piece of advice Stan left me was nobody knows what you left on the cutting room floor. So if you don't like it, move the shot. Here's an example of a friend who is using her tripod and who's trying to get a nice stable shot. I talked about being able to manage your background and your foreground as I was trying to film those sharks and it went off in the middle of it. Just blew it. I like having a little bit of negative space in my shot. Certainly when it comes to a manta, negative space is really good because sometimes they're going to swim right over you and fill the frame very well. And here's an example of that. It does, however, when they swim over you, create a bit of a challenge when it comes to what your settings are, because you can very easily overexpose your shot. Having light set up for that is helpful. So you light the underbelly when they swim over. And then when you've got action, just let the action happen. Watching these white-tipped sharks hunt is wonderful. For those of you who got to dive Manuelita in Cocos on night dives before they banned them, that was probably the wildest experience I'd ever had, and it was fabulous. I wish we could do that again. There's a fair bit of negative space here, but in my estimation, it doesn't impact the image because it really focused on the shark action there. I put this shot in because this was a good 40 or 50 feet above me where these jacks are circling, and the same thing below me here they're at about 150 feet, really dark shot shooting straight down. But that's just one of those. You can't shoot everything, and you do not need to be rocketing up or down. Try to get these, live to dive another day. Bobby gongs are a lot of fun, and I like setting up in a case like this where I've got an area that's well lit and then just let the action flow. Really like having that foreground lit and then letting the fish swim around as they do. Here's another example of a wide shot, a medium shot, and then a close-up shot. And another thing that I'm kind of peculiar about it, but I like having the fish swim out of the frame. And then using a tripod, I just put together a few little shots to show how wonderful it is when you've got a super stable shot. You can get extra great focus in there. These were eggs nests all over in Raja Ampat that the fish were going nuts on. Easy to let the anemone fish, clownfish swim around. I could not have gotten these eggs shots without a tripod. That would be a usable one. Nice when you've got a coral crab that will cooperate. That doesn't always happen. You know, I never find the pygmy seahorse in a place where I actually can set up the tripod, but it's worth a try anyway. Sometimes I'll even put the tripod on my chest to try to give myself some stability. When I was shooting those anemone fish right there, actually they're true clownfish, then I looked up and sure enough, I've got this great fish cleaning action, but I talked about managing the background. You know, we're mostly all diving with buddies, and your buddies are invariably going to be in the shot. And I will say on some of these, I had to prop slightly to get somebody's bubbles out. And the nice thing about a tripod too is if you've got some negative space that you want to fill, swim into it yourself and be your own subject. So when it comes to lighting with wide angle, you want to look at lighting so that the impact obviously is huge. I like to refer to this as painting with light. So your angles of the light or the direction of the sun are really important. If there's poor visibility, then one of the things to do is zoom with your fins, meaning get closer, or sometimes switch to macro. But I'm always asking myself as I'm filming, where is the sun? Where is the sun? Because the sun does have an amazing impact on what you're shooting. So here's some examples of the sun, whether these are good or bad, you like them or not, just looking at how you can use the sun to silhouette. You can use those beautiful God rays, or in this case, I'm using artificial light that shimmers beautifully. Here, having a slightly upward angle, you've got the surface of the water too that the light is playing off of. And in this shot, I really like it because not only are the jacks coming through lit, but you get the diver on the far side with light showing that they're obviously interacting with their environment and having a great time shooting. Of course, schools of jacks are always fun to shoot, and you know, location. You want to be in a place where there's a lot of fish life to be able to film. So choose great places to go diving. You know, this is, to me, nice even lighting that shows nicely, and I'll talk to you about angles of lights here in just a sec. This is 15 feet of water, and then in Raja Ampat again, where I've got something that's well lit and let the action play out. Use of God rays, I think, are beautiful, and they're a simple thing to do. So just pay attention, look up, where's the sun, and how can you use it to the best of your ability to make it for an interesting shot. Once again, when you've got fish swimming towards the surface, it is really, really hard to understand contrast. here we've got a lady who's got her lights pointed in, and this is, you know, a common mistake is people want to point their lights in and blast the subject. And all that does is light the water column between your camera lens and your subject, which means that you will probably have sediment that is shown in the water. Backscatter isn't really behind it. It's what's between the lens and the subject that you are lighting. This is an example of a great white shark that was beautifully lit by the sun, but as soon as it starts swimming into the sun and I'm shooting into the sun, then it washes the subject out and I've lost the contrast. So this is a shot I would never usually show to an audience, but I chose it for you guys. This is late in the day in Raja Ampat with about 4:30 in the afternoon. It's getting dark. It was kind of a pea green water, but the sardine action was happening everywhere. They were up, they were down. It was a really difficult thing to light. I'm not sure I'm entirely pleased with the shots that I got out of that, but I used artificial lighting as well as available light to try to show that these massive billions and billions of sardines were just swimming and rocketing all over the place as the jacks were going through feeding on them, and it was mesmerizing. I spent about an hour and a half doing this. I go back to that whole thing that Stan told me, nobody knows what you left on the cutting room floor, and when you've got an hour and a half of footage and you need to find the best 6 seconds of it or something, that's a real challenge. It's rare that I will use a clip that's more than 3 seconds, but sometimes when the action plays out, it's worth going ahead and doing. Let's see. Some considerations when it comes to wide angle as well is you want to fill the frame as much as possible, but the position of the diver and the use of negative space is really important. And as I talked about briefly, managing the background is a challenge because we've all got divers who are around us. So are there bubbles behind us? Have you got somebody who's in an odd position? So here's where I'm just going to show you some shots where divers can either make or break the clip. This diver gives you some size perspective. We've got, I think this is a beautiful shot with a little bit of God rays and a nice reef manta that's swimming around, and the diver makes it interesting. So I'm filling the frame. There's still a little bit of negative space that's filled with those God rays. So this guy was a great model. This one, I hope you don't have somebody with a GoPro sticking your shot and then somebody with ninja legs who's all curled up. This is not what I would use as a good example of a diver model. I hope your models do better than that. So have some good hand signals. I like using somebody who's taking a picture and then being able to cut away to that. And here, this is that blue hole in Palau after a really bad storm, so it wasn't clear. Still puts divers in there that are interesting. Putting a diver in front of a large animal minimizes the size. That does not look like a very big whale shark. Same thing here. It does not look like a very big whale shark. The minute you put the diver on the opposite side, and if you work with your dive buddy and make sure that you always, both of you split the difference, you know, one of you goes one side, one of you goes the other, it makes the animal look so much larger than it may actually be. I think it makes a more interesting shot. These were pretty good sized whale sharks anyway. Challenge here is, of course, horrible visibility because they're feeding in an area where there's lots of plankton. So lots of plankton means lots of backscatter. And then getting close, that's good. Hard to do with wide angle to get close enough because they do look so much smaller. Sometimes it doesn't matter though where the divers are because the size perspective is there. This was in Guadalupe several years ago, and that is a very, very big pregnant female, and wouldn't matter where the divers are. I think she showcases that she's a very big girl. I really hope they open Guadalupe again, and I hope the sharks are still there. I'm quite concerned. And lastly, be the last person in the water. Everybody else was in the boat or just the last two getting in when these whale sharks were swimming by, beautifully close, perfectly lit. It was a great moment. So be the last one out of the water whenever you possibly can. One of the things I'm going to recommend is put yourself on assignment. Make yourself try new techniques, try new equipment, try different settings, try different tools along the way. Again, location, location, location. Here's an example of trying new things. This was my second trip to Antarctica, and that's what your shower looks like when you go to Antarctica and your dive buddy and your roommate is also a photographer. It's a challenge, but you've got to try new things and work at it until you master it, because just because you don't like it and you don't do it doesn't mean you're ever going to get good at it. You know, everything takes perfect practice makes perfect. Dennis was talking about the beast, and he used a shot of me. So this is putting myself on assignment where I was working on trying to create some artificial bokeh. I'd read about this for still photography, so I thought, well, there may be a video application. And while I was at Atlantis, I thought, well, I'll just play with this a little bit. And it's using a kitchen scrubber and then using the snooted light with some light filters to actually light the what is it, kitchen scrubbers, one of those stainless steel scrubbers. The light reflects off of that. The subject is in front of that. You'll notice I have good buoyancy for this, and then that's the result. And my suggestion here is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm not really sure I'm happy with the results of that, but nevertheless, I gave it a try. And then just last week, I was playing with doing some time lapse in the Yukon of the Aurora, which is a lot of fun. And 3 nights there just playing to see what I could possibly get. I haven't looked at what was on my big camera. This is straight off of the GoPro, and I had 3 different devices. I had my iPhone doing some time lapse, the GoPro was running, and then my Canon R5 running it. But again, I haven't looked at that one yet. Put yourself on assignment, try new things. Okay, whew, that was a lot. Any questions?
Yeah, thank. I wondered what you were shooting over there when you were doing your bokeh experiment. Yeah, and by that was a GoPro that I was using.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Nancy, I was noticing that you had your light that was not attached to your camera rig, and you were moving it around, and you could stick it in the sand and put it where you wanted it. So when you are diving and moving around with that, where do you stick that light? What do you do with it? How do you keep it from dropping
Kind
it?
of a personal question, you know. So I make sure ahead of time that everything can be clipped in, but I also had custom made for myself a pair of diving chaps. So they're sort of like tech shorts with pockets in them, because my BC does not have good pockets, and I'm certainly not going to put a pokey stick in my BC. So I use these dive chaps with 2 big pockets on the side that I can put filters in, but I make sure that everything's clipped on, because you know how it goes. You bail out of the boat and you've lost something already. So yeah, clips and D-rings on your stuff works really well. And then those dive chaps have come in really handy. I don't use them on all dives, but certainly when I want to play with some toys, they do come in handy. And by the way, in order to make a pair for myself, I had to make 20 pairs from someplace off in the east. So if you're interested, let me know. I've got them cheap. And they're one size fits all.
I do have a question for you, Nancy. I was looking at the video where you were showing the rays, the sun rays coming down from the top. Typically that requires a fast shutter speed to be able to get that. What can you tell me what your settings are there? Especially your shooting?
I probably am shooting someplace at about a 800th to a 1,000th of a second. And of course, when you shoot
Video.
that fast, you're going to get a lot of silhouetting. You're not going to be able to light everything, but I like being able to shut it down so I can get that beautiful God rays. I look for that all the time.
Anybody else?
What camera is currently inside the Beast? I'm just curious what camera you're currently shooting.
That's the Canon R5C in a Nauticam housing with a Nauticam housing for my, what is that? I forgot what my monitor is.
Your monitor is a Nauticam, but it's can't remember
What's-
what it was.
I can't remember what's in it.
Oh,
having
it's whatever it is. Yeah, I can't remember it either. I was shooting my first time I've ever shot with my anglerfish, and the comment I have on there is that Nancy's beast is so big that she has just a, pardon the expression, a shitload of batteries inside everything. And you can go the entire day and never have to change batteries.
Yeah, that's the one thing I love about the R5C that they did not do with the R5. The C is meant more for video, but they also power it with a battery brick, and Nauticam made a place on that in the housing. So I run it off of a nice Anchor battery brick. And yes, I can run it all day.
And your monitor housing is so enormous that you put a lot of batteries inside that too.
There's 2 batteries that will usually last about 3 dives. But man, does it make a difference. And, you know, at 62,
Yeah,
I wish I had my eyesight in my 20s.
I'm packing a lot of batteries and changing them between dives.
Yeah, that's, of course, when you're traveling long distances and you're dealing with domestic connections in Indonesia and all of that, that's always a challenge because they're lithium batteries that have to go in your carry-on. So yes.
Yeah, well, I lost $1,200 worth of batteries coming out of Egypt one time. They just confiscated them. The same batteries you use, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share with anybody all the trips, the tricks and tips that I have for trying to prevent the luggage Nazis from getting to your stuff. You got to make it look light as a feather, and those old ugly photojournalist vests loaded with things can help.
More questions, some more questions. It looks like, yeah, thank you so much. I want to thank you very much.
Nancy, I have a question, probably a stupid question. You were talking about the shark being pregnant. Now, really stupid question. How could you tell she was pregnant?
Very girthy, very, very, very big, wide. Yeah.
Okay, just the overall form.
Overall form. The other thing is that time of the year, it's usually the pregnant females that are coming in. And I had timed my trips to Guadalupe for those bigger females. The males are a little bit more active. They're a little smaller, but I like those big girthy girls. I am one, so hey.
You're not so girthy, girl.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
you very
so
much, Nancy.
much.
Great talk.
Thanks, Nancy.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys for having
appreciate
me.
And Paul, thanks for the introduction.
close, intermediate, advanced star. Yeah. 1 point or less. So, looking pretty strong. Yeah. How many people going? How many people going? Hands up.
A cup of tea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.